morning, everybody. Thank you all for being here. I'd like to acknowledge that there are people that have come here today who are transportation professionals. If you spend the majority of your time on transportation-related issues in our community, please raise your hand. Great. So please look around. These are the experts, and I may use them during the Q&A if I am stumped. I am Christina Acosta, and I wear two hats in our community. I am the business owner, operator, and founder of a social enterprise called Pedal Power Promoters. I'm also a founding member on the board of Bike Tampa, an all-volunteer advocacy organization working to make our communities safe and to ensure that people can get around in a variety of ways. So, transportation. Café Tampa has existed for about 16 years, and every year, at least twice, there's a community forum where Dell and other leaders of this group ask the constituents, what do we want to hear about going forward? What's important to us? What do we like about our community? What ails us? And without fail, for 16 years, every single community forum includes transportation as a topic. In addition, John and I were reminiscing that transportation makes its way into about at least half of the conversations at Café Tampa, even when the topic is not transportation. It could be about access to downtown. It could be about parking. It could be about the arts. Whatever this group is interested in, there are tentacles that transportation affects. So, to my count, that's over 400 times that conversation about transportation or the desire to talk about transportation has been expressed at Café Tampa. So it's an honor to be here today, and there are many more topics that are transportation related. It's a very broad subject. Today I'm going to talk about what makes our communities so dangerous, our transportation systems. No matter whether you're driving, walking, biking, scooting, whatever your mode, we have a very dangerous network, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about why that is. Tampa Bay's roadway network is very, very dangerous, as you know, especially for people not in cars, like pedestrians and bicyclists. According to the rank of our peer metropolitan service areas, 20 are regularly measured in our peer group by the Tampa Bay Partnership. We are, pardon the pun, but it's appropriate, dead last. We are the worst out of 20. We are 20th in our fatality rates. And I'm going to tell you that the main common denominator that causes that is our speeds of our roadways. And notice, I'm not saying speeding. I'm not saying going beyond what is posted or requested of us as we occupy our roadways. We have, just a little more about that research, our fatality rates per 100,000 residents are 5.58 compared to the best in our peer group, which happens to be Minneapolis-St. Pete, at 1.17 fatalities. So it's a huge spread. We could do better. What I'm not going to talk about today, I'm not going to talk about highways, and I'm not here to car shame anyone. I came here today in a car with my husband of 36 years, and by the way, shout out to him, he's here, and he's heard more of this conversation than anyone should ever have to be subjected to. So thanks, John. And I also want to say that these words and comments and opinions are my own. I mean no disrespect to any of the transportation organizations that I may mention. What I am going to talk about is our transportation system and our behaviors. I hope to provide some insight that a lot of us, I'll be calling us the system users, a lot of us don't really recognize or see in our day-to-day movement about the community. It's my hope that you leave here better informed and prepared to support some of the things that we need to do in order to reduce our high crash rates and also reduce congestion. Does anybody hate congestion? I do. So let's talk about it. There are two kinds of speeds. There are the posted speeds. We all know what those are. Those are the signs that tell us how we're supposed to travel, at what rate. However, there's also something called the design speed. The design speed is the way that a road is engineered and designed, and it's kind of the natural speed that we will travel if we're not really paying attention. This is when you're traveling on a road and you look at your speedometer and you go, holy crap, I'm really moving faster than I'm supposed to be. But that's because you are going what is natural on that roadway in accordance to the design and the engineering. Nobel Prize-winning economist and psychologist Dan Kahneman tells us in this book, Confessions of a Recovering Traffic Engineer, that our brains only operate in two ways. We have level 1 and level 2 systems as humans. So in level 1, we're operating kind of automatically. We go about our business, we do all the things that we do that don't require a whole lot of thought. It's just habit. It's moving through your day and through your tasks and what you do. From a driving context, level 1 makes it possible for us to maybe make a phone call while we're driving, to queue up a podcast, to do the other things that we do when we're driving, when we are in level 1. The problem is level 1 combined with our high speeds is what gives us our poor crash ratings and lack of safety in our community. Now level 2 thinking requires focus. It's not possible for humans to remain in level 2 at all times. We cannot possibly absorb everything that is coming into our sensory systems. But level 2 requires focus. And from a driving perspective and using our transportation systems, this means we are forced to focus when there's complexity in the road, when there are things close to the road like trees or activities, roundabouts, curves. Have any of you ever tried to text someone while you're driving in a roundabout? It's not possible. You really have to pay attention and be engaged. There's other things that nudge us into System 2 when we're driving. Angela reminded me that the technology in more modern cars gets chimes and bells and whistles when the signal ahead, when we're at a stop and the signal ahead turns green, beep, beep. When we're about to change lanes, but maybe we shouldn't, beep, beep, beep. So these things rattle us into System 2 thinking. So too do the real-time speed indicators, kind of one of the many band-aids we use in our roadway system. Yeah, the post is, you're supposed to be traveling this, but you're actually going that. So you drive past that and go, oh my, System 2, I'm paying attention now, I get it, I'm going too fast. So, one big thing that's happened in the Tampa area that I had a hand in is something called Vision Zero. Vision Zero is something I learned about when the cities of New York, San Francisco, and Boston were the first American cities to declare that they were going to work towards having 0 fatalities and serious injuries on their roadways. That was a mighty call. When I heard them talk about it, I sat in the front row like a brooding teenager, and I mean, my body language was like, you don't know Tampa, no way. 0? It's crazy in Tampa. But I began to really learn about it, and I want to share what I learned just in a thimbleful with you. Exactly what is Vision Zero? Vision Zero, as I said, is the aspiration to get to 0 serious fatalities and serious injuries on our roadways. That's what we want. But how we get there is by using something called the Safe Systems approach. Notice systems. To get a little bit sciencey for a second. That's a real word, sciencey. Vision Zero is the management of kinetic energy. We are to manage the force that a human body can sustain and still survive. So that's speed management. Does anybody here want to take a guess at what is the speed that a human body can tolerate and still have a high likelihood of survival? Just shout out any roadway speeds. 30. 35? 20? Okay, cool. So the answer to that is 35 kilometers. Anybody? I know Angela could do the math and convert for us, but that's 19 miles an hour to you and me. 19 miles an hour. And so consider how few roads in our community are at that pace. I'm not saying every road needs to be that, but where we do have heavy pedestrian activity, really that's the speed we should aspire to. And also the design car in all that math is a sedan. So in the United States, the top selling vehicles are, anybody know what are the top selling vehicles for the last 5 years in the United States? Trucks. Exactly, trucks. And so, again, no car shaming, but understand the trucks, the model that leads us to that 19 miles an hour is a car that weighs about 2,600 pounds, but the top selling vehicles in the United States weigh up to 6,500 pounds. And the grills are real high, so they hit torso. So much lower speeds. I haven't seen the math yet. I really hope someone will take that up and give us the new images about the speeds. You, Angela, please get that done. So, what are the speeds in Tampa, Florida, and how do they affect our crash rates? Hillsborough County commissioned a speed study. The Vision Zero work that we brought to the community resulted in more analytics, and this is really important information. The author of the speed study is actually here, Paula Flores. So imagine a pie graph in your head. Right now it's just an empty circle, but go with me visually because I have no slides. Then take a piece of pie out that is 70%. Okay, got that in your heads? Then add another wedge of 15%. So our pie now is 85% full. The pie represents how many of our high injury corridors have speeds that are posted too high. Not even the design speed, which is always high. The 70% represents speeds that are posted at 5 to 10 miles above what they should be posted as according to the context that those roads are currently. And the other 15 are posted at 15 to 20 miles an hour higher than what would be recommended by national best practices today. So we're posting way too high, and then we're driving the design speed, and we're slipping into, as normal humans, brain system 2. We almost lose all of our peripheral vision in those instances. And so these are the factors that affect how we occupy our roads. One thing I've learned in this journey, which I've been on for about 10 years, is that land use, this group spends a lot of time talking about land use. Land use and transportation are inexplicably linked. I'm getting the wrap-up signal, so I'm going to just make this point and then close up. Our bad land use policies, and when I say bad, I mean we don't offer enough diversity and affordability of housing near our job centers. So downtown, West Shore, or USF area. And that forces people to live really far away from where they work, and they're forced into car ownership, which is about $12,000 a year, according to AAA. $12,000 a year. That makes us, on our peer group, ranked at number 18 out of 20. Again, up in the bottom. In terms of our blended household percentage of expense that goes to housing and transportation, we're at 50%, compared to Minnesota at 52%. So I'm going to go to my closing, and I had a few more points, but we want to wrap up because Q&A is really important here. I'm really happy that these books have been published. I've already identified this one, and I hope you'll each consider taking a picture or reading them. This one is very provocatively titled, called "Killed by a Traffic Engineer." It is not to shame and blame the traffic engineer community. However, it is to cast light that there are weaknesses in the education system and the demands that are put on traffic engineers. A lot of times they design really great safe stuff, and then they don't have political support to get it done. So, speeds are not an issue in our community. They are the issue. Our posted speeds are too high almost everywhere. When you leave here, put fresh eyes on our community when you're driving, and you'll see what I mean. But there is hope. There's a lot that can happen in the Tampa Bay area. Congestion can only be cured by having fewer cars on the road and more modal options. So thank you for being here this morning, and I look forward to your Q&A. To your
Christy, can you tell us why no one in Tampa uses turn signals?
Oh, Elizabeth, I cannot, but I can assure you when I'm driving and on my bike I do. I will say something. We get to use, in most places in the United States, we get right on red privilege, and this is a very high crash incident potential, because when I'm turning right, where is my eye? Where am I looking? I'm looking left to my threat. Everything here is invisible to me. So as our city goes about reducing the number of times that we can make a right on red, please be supportive and understand that it's for safety and it's important.
Many years ago when I got my driver's license, I was taught that you're riding your bicycle, you go with the traffic, and if you're a pedestrian, you go against the traffic. But apparently, nobody knows that anymore, or have they changed the rules?
Good point. And we're working all the time to try to get more updates to the driver's license education and renewals. Pretty much everybody who's not in a car in the Tampa Bay area is in survival mode. So they're going to do whatever it is that they can do to feel safe. I'm happy to share that our city is advancing a connected and comfortable, safe network of bicycle and pedestrian facilities. So what you describe is completely context-based, so I cannot guess what a person on a bike would be thinking and why they would be perhaps on the sidewalk riding against traffic versus in the lane. I would say they're in survival mode and they just want to get where they're going alive.
Stan Loper, bicyclist, and I guess to answer that question, because I have done that before, it is contextual. If you're going to a certain place or you know you're going to be turning left a little bit ahead and there's a bunch of trucks behind you, you get over on the left side so those trucks don't have to go past you. Okay, so as a bicyclist, I don't know if this is a question, but maybe just ask you if these are good ideas. I don't view myself as, I can't rely on the car to save my life. I rely on myself. So are these three good things? One is, as a bicyclist, assume you're invisible. I do that all the time. At night, during the day, I'm invisible. Second is, never ride in the kill zone. I call that bike lane that's right next to the texter is the kill zone. So I always go in the sidewalk, even to the chagrin of people who are walking on the sidewalk, okay? And I have a bike that goes in grass. So third thing is, gotta have a rear view mirror so you know what's coming behind you. If that big logging truck is behind you, you go in the grass. And so are those good ideas? Do you also preach that kind of thing to bicyclists?
I do, but I'll say this as well. The sidewalk looks safe, but you're definitely invisible there, especially with driveways and streets coming at all angles and people making right-hand turns. So as long as you understand that, you'll be safe and you'll do well. A rear view mirror is my #1 recommendation as a safety feature. #1. Now, you said you presume you're invisible. On many roads that I travel, streets and roads are different, I didn't get to that part, but many roads that I travel on, I make myself visible by taking the center of the lane that is legal and appropriate and what I'm supposed to do. And if you're behind me in your car, be patient, take 1 or 2 deep breaths, because I'll be out of your way very quickly. I mean, really, like 30 or 60 seconds max. But my motto is, you might be annoyed, I'm not dead. So please be cognizant of the people who do need and want to get around our community without a car. And I'm sorry if that makes people bristle, but if I'm in the middle of the lane, then people coming from all the different angles will definitely see me, because as motorists, that's where our eyeballs go. And I don't do it on high-speed roads because of the things I mentioned.
Thank you. I believe that if you had the time, you could probably speak for another hour on this subject. And I would probably still be at the edge of my seat to hear you. You were talking ultimately about changing human behavior. If you had that time to speak for another hour, and you were put in charge of some kind of campaign that people would have to respond to and perhaps even vote for, as we leave here, I know I was supposed to look with fresh eyes at the road, but as we leave here, what would you have us vote for?
I don't think we need a campaign. We just need to deploy the tools and techniques that are widely established and do result in behavior modification, even though you'll see it now because you've been coached by me, but most of us wouldn't see the changes that happen. This is like hardscaping where rocks are put in on a corner so people have to slow down in their turn radii, shortening those turns, narrowing the lanes. Wide lanes make us feel like we can go really fast. And again, it's not our fault, I'm not blaming anybody. This is the human function of how we feel in a roadway space. So we need design changes. Some are really tiny and small and have huge effects. Some are quite large and expensive. But we're focusing on the inexpensive and quick opportunities that exist in our community.
For your presentation. To follow up on Mr. Wilson's comments, after spending several years with some traffic engineers, opening my eyes, and of course spending time on the CAC for the MPO, TPO review, and seeing great work that Karen Crest has done in parking minimums, which actually makes people tend to walk or use mass public transportation. We have a mindset as a community. That mindset is we depend on our vehicles to get to and from. How do we change that mindset and let people know that there are alternative transportation? And how do we better our public mass transportation? Because transportation is designed to move people, not vehicles. So how do we get people actually out of their cars and get them onto public mass transportation? And to follow that up, how do we convince our governments to do better our public mass transportation?
The way that we get people onto public transit is to make it better, easier, safer, and more fun than driving or productive. We have a really great example now of something called bus rapid transit in our region, in St. Petersburg. Bus rapid transit feels and looks like a train or a tram. It's got a dedicated lane, meaning buses are not stuck in traffic, so that's the first thing. It connects with the light signals in advance, so it has a steady flow of the stops. It also offers level boarding with the doors open like this. In St. Petersburg, on the bus rapid transit, you can bring your bike on board. You're not outside the vehicle hoping that 2 other people haven't gotten there before you to load a bike. And there are several proposals in Tampa for bus rapid transit. And so we need our elected officials to support that. We need the TPO board to agree that it's a priority. And so once we make transit better, equal to or better, people will use it.
Thank you for being here. Ashley from Florida. I was curious. I grew up here. I've lived here my whole entire 44 years of my life. And I went to this thing called driver's education. It doesn't exist anymore, if you didn't know that. But I learned how to drive from Coach Saladino at King High School. And one of the things that I saw was that we had opportunity to really see how pedestrians moved about the King High School parking lot. And it really prepared me as a driver in the future. Not that I'm the best driver, I'm really not. But I've been teaching my 2 kids how to drive. And as a mom, it's a really tough world because they're living like this. And we're not necessarily really preparing them with all of the things, all the changes that are rapidly happening. What are your thoughts around drivers' education and how we can make our community more safe by educating drivers beyond the typical ways of education?
I'll be honest with you. In transportation, education is one of the E's. The transportation, Florida DOT and others, they speak about the 4 E's that we need in transportation. Education is one, engineering is another, enforcement is another. What's the other E? Encouragement. Out of all of those, including education, none of them matters except engineering, or not as much. Of course, we need to know laws, rules of the road, and how to behave. But 90% of the weighted value of all 4 of those is the engineering. So, when our state and others spend hundreds of thousands of dollars telling people to wear bright clothes or walk 3 blocks in August to cross at a signal, it doesn't work for me. I'm sorry, I'm going to just say it like I see it. So education is important from a perspective of how to operate a vehicle, how to obey laws. But in terms of fixing our transportation system and reducing our crashes, not going to work.
It seems to me that there is likely, but I don't know this, a correlation between the number of cars on the road and the number of accidents, particularly involving pedestrians. How do we stack up against those peer cities that you refer to in terms of using mass transportation to reduce the number of cars on the road? And would that have a positive impact on accident rates and all? I suspect it would, but I don't know what the statistics say.
That is a great question. How do we stack up? And by the way, I'm going to put a plug in for the Tampa Bay Partnership and its scorecard, our regional assessment, to come and speak here because they have just their information is gold. We're awful. You know, we're 19 or 20, 18, 19, 20. And one of the things that prompted me to, every year I go to the Tampa Bay Partnership Reveal, and I see a lot of you that also go on the study. And every year, they tell us the same stuff. They had one graph that was presented by the business school, and it said, here's how we've done year over year. And so there's this line where Tampa Bay is. It's always in the bottom quartile for most of the metrics they measure. It's not just transportation and housing affordability. They measure a lot of stuff. But for many things, we're in the bottom quartile. And on the graph, as they move from year to year, it's just like, oh, we didn't suck that bad. Oh, we suck again. Oh, we didn't suck that bad. Oh, we suck again. It was just like, we're still making any changes. So getting roads off, offering more modal options means we have to get transit and make transit great. That's going to represent a sacrifice of car lanes because we want the buses and hopefully someday ferries to operate unencumbered by other traffic. So we're not doing great with that, but we have to. We can't keep going the way we're going. One thing I notice is there's a real anti-growth sentiment that I hear a lot of people saying, no, please don't move to Tampa, Florida. We don't want any more people here. But what they really mean is, we don't want any more cars here. Cars and people are 2 separate things. And we use them interchangeably sometimes. It's really unfortunate. But we do need people to come and fill these great jobs that are being created. We need people to come and start small businesses, activate our community. We want these great minds to be here. Some of the people who are anti-growth are the same people that hope their children go to college and then come back. Guess what? With a spouse or friends, they're bringing their own people here, but they don't want anyone else to come. But mostly, that's just really thinly veiled. No more traffic congestion.
Yeah, we want more people, we just don't want them to bring a big car after you. That's my point.
As a follow-up to the gentleman's question over there, the Allstate DriveWise app, and my wife and I are in the Mercury Go app, and so we're in competition now to see who gets the best score, right? So we're, it's all measuring speed, braking, and how much you touch your phone. So my question is, has there been any recent study on changing the driver behavior because of these apps that the insurance companies allow you to get discounts on if you're a good driver?
I'm sure the app providers have their own data that is very positive. I don't know of a study, but I will tell you that what you're experiencing is you're being nudged, the science of nudge, you are being nudged to turn on your system to thinking deliberately. And so these are all great things that give us a lot of hope. Those are opt-in, so we can't force them on everybody. But I'm glad you're doing that. Thank you.
Acosta, I think you're familiar with it. At the beginning of the month, I sat through a presentation by the Florida Chamber, and then just this Wednesday, sat through some presentations by the Tampa Bay Economic Development Council, bringing in 4 new companies that just moved into Tampa. And invariably, these two, as well as other presentations I've sat through, list transportation as top 2 issues facing not just Florida, but specifically Tampa, and then the projections of the number of people that will be moving here by 2030, and the aspirations the state and the city have to expand. This situation is not going to improve itself on its own. It's only going to become exacerbated. So I appreciate the work that you do, as well as our other traffic experts that are in the room. And I thank you personally for being the conscience of Tampa on this island.
Wow. Thank you very much for saying that.
My driving has been transformed in the last half year. I've been driving almost 65 years, mostly safely. And what has changed has saved me hundreds of dollars. And it is the app that we just heard mentioned. I think I'm with Progressive, but what it is, you put an app on your phone. The company knows what your speed is all the time. And you get a discount of hundreds of dollars if you have that on your phone. I don't know if you've experienced what I've seen, but car insurance rates suddenly jumped a lot this year. In my case, a couple $1,000s, and so I shopped it. And I could save several $100s by putting this app on my phone. All of a sudden, I'm the slowest person on the road, going at the maximum posted speed limit. But it has changed my mind because I can save hundreds of dollars by having this app. And they can either drive through me, they can drive around me, or they can just wait at the posted speed limit. But that app is such a real savings, and I think it translates ultimately to a safer community.
Absolutely. And I think where Bike Tampa is concerned, I think we have some potential sponsors with those safety apps. The thing I wanted to say, in addition to thank you, John, for telling us about those economic statistics, this rating that we go through every year through the Tampa Bay Partnership, we are #1 in one category. We are #1 in growth. So we have all these new people coming. It's great. Many of the people in this room have contributed a lot to make our city so desirable and so wonderful. So, yeah, we do need to make room for the new people and add modes of transport.
I live in a neighborhood that has 5 schools within like a 2-mile radius. And one of the things we've seen change dramatically over the last handful of years are golf carts. We've got tons of people driving these golf carts and not always greatly driving these golf carts. So my question is this something that factors into the studies that you do? Is there any kind of encouragement for that? Is there any kind of oversight education involved with that? Do you see statistically them causing more accidents or having complications in that regard?
I don't have a lot of data on the golf carts, but other than we do see the proliferation of golf carts in a lot of different neighborhoods. They are only permitted on streets that have a speed limit of 35 or less, I think. Look to Karen for nod on that. To be honest with you, I love them. More than 50% of our trips in a day are under 3 miles. Under 3 miles. So I would encourage a lot of communities and master plan areas to have parking that is specific to golf carts. They're very vibrant, people say hello. Do they drive them? We've observed that they're driving poorly, but that's because they're not encased in the bubble, and we look at them through what we call our windshield lens. And so I do see people behaving dangerously, but I see people behaving dangerously in every mode. And so the golf carts are slower, they take up a lot less space, and they're more prone to connecting community members. Good morning, how are you? These endorphins that we need, all of us, every day. So I favor them, I support them.
I think the biggest problem is I don't know what an age limit is, but it's the parents let the kids run around the neighborhoods in them.
How many times have we heard the parents let the kids insert something? It's everywhere, and sure, you know, when I was a teenager, wow, I loved it. I had our best friends. And maybe one of my neighbors said to my parents, she's not driving that best friend.
Right.
Yeah.
Number one, I agree with everything you said so far for sure. Love the golf carts, love Seaside, you know. As Floridian, we love our master plan communities. Like I said earlier, I'm an urban planner, but I'm a project manager for a civil team. Consider myself a plan engineer. Looking for 2 new plan engineers, if anyone knows any great engineers. But what I was going to say is, what can you talk to us about with our personal responsibility for design and connectivity? You know, we love our master plan communities. Even something like Midtown, which is very internally focused, only a few ways you can get in. And every other master plan development that's happening around Tampa, right? We're looking for large developments rather than small incremental developments in Tampa.
Just a little closer, Cameron. Yeah, will you repeat the question, Bert?
So, as design professionals, where do you think connectivity comes in, and what can we do to encourage, especially private developers, to increase their amount of connectivity or points of connectivity for pedestrians and vehicles?
Thank you for bringing that up. I'm a member of the Urban Land Institute. Are you? All right. So I went to the statewide conference of Urban Land Institute, and I saw a lot of great development happening. But I'm sorry to say that transportation is not factored in most cases. So we do have a lot of master plans. All due respect to Midtown and the Brownlee Group, it's an island there. It's an island, and you, for the most part, can only get in with a car, unless you are an urban cyclist or you know every curb cut around it, as I do. And as you will learn if you come with us on World Car Free Day, because there's a fabulous activation. So, you know, they want to be urban. The entire West Shore District wants to be urban. So when we do our master plans and when our land use is appropriately put into town building and smaller communities, we want the community to be great, but we need access to the community to be great for people who do not come, who do not live within. I mean, it's kind of, sorry to say it, it's a little silly to have a walkable community that is basically a 5-minute walk end to end. You know, thank you. So, anyway, Water Street is a better example. Water Street is really, and this is because they are the first district in the United States to be certified as well. So well means they have to incorporate active transportation, which is the term for just walking, biking, or anytime we use our physical body to transport. And so Water Street is much better because they are much more porous to the community. Now, it's still not great. We're working on the connective tissue that we need. It's not great to walk from Water Street, say, to the county center. No shade. You're going to be on those high-speed roads that really do not belong in an urban core. We're working on it. We see it, and connectivity is.
I'm Rocky Milburn with the Sierra Club. I just returned from Scotland after 3 weeks, and when I heard about this, and I know Karen pretty well, and the great work they do, I was curious about Scotland, because there's a lot of people that ride bikes over there.
Put your mic up real close.
They ride a lot of bikes, so I looked at the statistics. They were really upset that their death rate in the whole country almost tripled in 1 year. It went from 2 deaths to 7 in 1 year. Now my question is, that's just a statement, but here's my question. All this stuff that we're doing and talking about is fantastic, but are we really going to solve this until we solve the mass transit problem? And we all know that answer. People over there were complaining that the train was 2 minutes late, and I said, gosh, I wish we could complain about that. So, my question to you, this is all great, but until we get a real mass transit solution, are we going to really, really improve on this? You know, Florida leads the nation in motorcycle deaths, bicycle deaths, golf cart deaths, pedestrian deaths, and a lot of it's because of mass transit.
What I think you're saying is the lack of mass transit, right? And I would say mass transit options, because Tampa Bay is the largest metropolitan area in the United States that is on water and has no meaningful ferry service. Think about that for a minute. That's not even measured in our transportation plans. So we have the potential to put transit out there, but I'll say this. Can't keep waiting for transit. It's so contentious. People fight about it all the time. It's very expensive. I think we'll get there, but in my lifetime, I don't know. What I will say is this: a connected network of safe, comfortable space for me or any of us to travel from here across town via bicycle or scoot, especially electric bikes. They have changed the world. It's really doable in a shorter and less expensive way. I'm not saying we'll all be on a bike every trip, but we've got to start thinking about transportation on a trip-by-trip basis and break that neurological chain of, I need to go do something and my hand is reaching for my keys. That's level 1 thinking. It's automatic, get my keys, gonna go half a mile to the grocery store. So this is where we need to break that pattern.
Make sure I heard that right. But you rarely hear the cost of owning an automobile is $12,000 a year, which I think is low. And that means it's $1,000 a month an automobile. When people are talking about the cost of transportation, they never talk about the individual cost. How come the cost is not a factor in determining the need for alternative transportation?
Well, it should be, and what you're talking about here plays into something called a mindset that, according to researcher Ian Webb, many of us in the United States, and certainly in Tampa and Florida, have a mindset of what is called motonormativity. So motonormativity is a state of perception whereby we make excuses for the health harms that are brought about by cars. We make excuses. One of the questions he had in his survey was he sort of likened, the question was posed that took cars out of the equation and said, would it be acceptable for a person to stand near a schoolyard and smoke? How many of us would bristle at that notion? It wasn't that long ago. I'm old enough to remember, people were smoking in an airplane 2 rows behind me. So smoking cessation is a lot like this. So, but we think nothing of idling our car at a school zone. Lots of cars idle there without much regard, even on climate comfortable days in Tampa. So it's not only about AC. Think about that. So motor normativity is what's at play there, Dom. The reason the expense of having a car is not registered by many people is because of payment plans, because of financing that happens for 6 years, because insurance, all these things are delivered to the consumer in bite sizes and not in one lump. If they saw these things, if most people did, they would really wake up to it. And that number comes from AAA, by the way.
Hi, Christine.
Hi, Brandy.
Hi, Café on campus. Brandy Nicholas, I'm a city planner. I've lived here since 2007, Florida native. I had a data point that I was wanting to mention. It was fascinating. You said this is the 16th year of Café on Tampa?
Yes.
So since 2008. What else came out or started to exist around 2008?
And the answer is yeah, I don't know.
83 degrees video.
Actually say something that affects traffic safety before.
But no, it's the iPhone.
Yes.
It's the iPhone. So there's a study that New York Times did. It was probably came out at the very end of last year. Maybe it was January of this year. But it does do a deep dive into how pedestrian deaths. It doesn't go about every single multimodal user, but specifically pedestrian deaths. Pedestrians are more most vulnerable roadway users. How the pedestrian deaths have seen a major increase since about 2009, and it steadily increases. And so I think they're trying to connect time of day, what are the drivers doing, what are our activities, what are our behaviors. So it was really more of a data point, and also just to say that I've heard you speak in Tampa, I've heard you speak in other countries, and I've heard you speak in other cities. And thank you so much for telling Tampa's story and to continue to learn from others and to teach other areas what we're trying to do too. So thank you.
Thank you. The next slide to the cell phone. Mine's right there. The cell phone does have the iPhone. The emergence of the iPhone has had effects on all of us, and it is highly addictive. That's why we need these chimes and things to alert us that a light has changed, because our dwell time has increased, and signals, there's a long queue of cars trying to make it through, and every person is dwelling now instead of just the front car. But I will also say, my example again, with good engineering and good roadway design, I cannot lift up my phone if I have to be in level 2, so we have to rely on countermeasures to fight that and not just use it, not rationalize our way out of, well, it's just the damn cell phone, or that we're so distracted by it. So, thank you.
Thank you, this was very interesting. Definitely dominates the conversation in Café today. We thank you.
Thank you, Dennis.
And remember, it costs you $1,000 a month to keep that card going.